Good morning again. Aaron, I saw you and Jonathan made it, so we'll get you guys in, and we will. As Tim mentioned earlier, here in the next week or so, our kind of regular weekly gatherings will recommence. Our Sunday school classes start next week, and our small groups, which we call shepherding groups here at Grace, will start the week after. I'm excited. The elders gave me permission to teach a little bit this time, so I'm going to jump in with Chad Berry and Phil Bishop to help teach the class that they're teaching. Really looking forward to teaching alongside Chad. We'll tolerate Phil. That's his love language. So I thought that it might be good for us today as we jump back in to a season of ministry and community here together at Grace to just kind of be reminded of who we are and what we want to be here at this church. Over the holidays, I got to see my brother for a little bit. He and his family lived in Huntsville, and we were together at my parents for a few days, and we always kind of, as we're sitting around, tend to gravitate toward YouTube and watching funny videos on YouTube. I guess, I don't know, do you do this? Do other people do this? Okay. And so my brother showed me this video from YouTube that I think was a commercial of a business here in Alabama. And I think this has been around, this commercial has been around for a while, but I had not seen it. The commercial, this business was marketing their business, and their business is that they sell refurbished mobile homes. That's what they sell. Right? And they do a great job in the commercial of just saying, hey, what we do is we sell refurbished mobile homes. If you want a mansion, if you want a really nice house, if you want a new mobile home, we don't sell those. But if you need a refurbished mobile home, we got you. It was a really good commercial. And I just love that they said, this is who we are. This is what we do. We're not going to try and be anything different. We're not going to try and glamorize what we do. This is what we do. This is who we are. It's good. Maybe we're the equivalent at Grace Church of selling refurbished mobile homes. I don't know. But it's just good to kind of remember who we are and what we do. We're not going to try and be the church down the street. We're not going to try and be something that we're not. Certainly we want to learn from other pastors and other churches, but we have a uniqueness to who we are at Grace Church because no other congregation has this group of people. So let's be us, and let's remember what it is to be us, and enjoy that, and bear with one another when we get on each other's nerves at times, right? The psalm that I want to do that, I love the Psalms. I have said many times that my favorite book in the Bible is Psalms. I love the Psalms. And the psalm that I want us to look at and help us remember that is Psalm 133. Let me give you some background real quick to Psalm 133, and then we'll jump in and look at the text. Psalm 133 is part of a group of psalms that starts in Psalm 120 and goes to Psalm 134. This group of psalms is referred to as the Psalms of Ascents. Psalms of Ascents, like you're ascending. These are a group of psalms that were sung by God's people as they would make pilgrimages from their hometown, wherever they were from, up the mountains to Jerusalem to go worship together at the temple. And so these were, you ever get in your car and you go on a trip and you listen to music, this is what they were doing, right? They were singing these songs as they traveled along going to Jerusalem to worship in the temple. So that's the background to this psalm. We'll kind of point out why that's significant here later in the psalm. Psalm 133, let's read it. It's only 3 verses. Real short, real simple. Let's read it, Psalm 133. Behold, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity. It's like the precious oil on the head, running down on the beard of Aaron, running down on the collar of his robes. It is like the dew of Hermon, which falls on the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord has commanded the blessing, which is life forevermore. Great song. Great song. Real simple song. If you look on the back of your bulletin, there's a very simple, easy, short outline that just kind of helps us understand the structure of this psalm. And here's the basic structure. In verse 1, you get a principle. So we'll look at the principle. And then basically you just get 2 pictures of the principle. Real simple. A principle and 2 pictures of the principle. All right? So we'll just kind of look at that very simply, very easily here. What is the principle in this psalm? What is the main theme that drives the entire psalm? The principle is dwell in unity. Dwell in unity. Those are the last 3 words of verse 1. Dwell in unity. So the question is, what does that mean to dwell in unity? Well, there's a couple other instances in the Old Testament where we see these words or this phrase used. It kind of gives us some insight into what that means to dwell in unity. One of those instances is in the book of Genesis. In the book of Genesis, we see Abraham and his nephew Lot. And they are living beside each other. Now, these are both very wealthy men. They have a lot of family, they have a lot of livestock, they have a lot of servants, they have a lot of possessions and resources. And so for a while, they kind of live side by side with each other. Their households are able to kind of share the same resources. They're able to mutually encourage one another and share with one another and support one another. And then they eventually get too big and they have to move apart. But the fact that this phrase is used to describe how they live together gives us some insight into dwelling in unity. It means to occupy the same space, to rub shoulders with each other, to interact with each other, to be, to some degree, dependent on each other. Another instance of this comes up in a story in Judges. This same phrase is used, dwelling in unity, and it's used there to describe a group of people who comes together and eats around a table. And you have very similar ideas there, right? That when you come together and eat around a table, you're both sharing the same food, you're sharing the same table, you're occupying the same space, you're interacting with each other. This is what it means to dwell in unity. Now, this is not how our society lives. We live at arm's length from each other. We live in a society of rugged individualism. I can handle myself. I don't need anybody's help. I will do things on my own. Thank you very much. That value is actually very much emphasized in our society. Rugged individualism. And so if we're not careful, this is the way that we kind of drift. We don't want to occupy space with anybody else. Everybody just kind of stay away and let me do my thing. I tell you, this was driven home to me so clearly. Sometimes Aunt Grace will kind of suck me into some of her TV shows. And so there's this show that she watches. And I get sucked in. And here's what happens. Here's the show. They find this couple, married couple, and they are looking for a house. And so they get with a realtor, and the realtor goes around and shows them different houses, and then they pick a house. That's the whole show. Anyways, maybe some of you have seen this. And so it's fascinating to watch these people buy a house because you get insight into our culture. And it's fascinating. They'll go, and this is, I saw this happen time after time. It's amazing to me. They go into a house and they go into the master bathroom. Now, keep in mind, these are two people who have joined themselves together in a lifelong covenant of holy matrimony before Almighty God. And they're looking at the master bedroom, and as soon as they find out, or master bathroom, as soon as they find out that it doesn't have two sinks, they're out. This didn't just happen once. I mean, it literally happens in every single show. The notion that they might have to share a sink, it's a deal breaker. They won't buy a house because it's unbelievable. So I apologize now to Anna Grace every night when we're sharing our sink before we go to bed. I'm sorry. Sorry that we have to have a house with only one sink. But isn't that interesting? That's a great picture of, I mean, you can be married to somebody, but it's like, hey, don't come over and get using my sink. You stay over there, and I'll stay over here. We just have this instinct in us. We don't want to occupy the same space as other people. Why? Because it's hard. It's not easy. It's in some ways, it makes life much more hassle-free to not have to rub shoulders with other people. But it's the opposite of what this psalm is talking about. What the psalm says here is that the Lord places high value when His children come together and dwell in unity. Learn how to occupy the same space. Learn how to love and serve mutually one another in encouragement. They're attentive to one another. They're aware of what's going on in one another's lives. They don't live at arm's length. And the word that we use around here to describe that a lot is community. You see that word unity show up in that word, right? A phrase that we've used for years around here at Grace that I think is so helpful is that we want to be worshipers in community, engaged in ministry. That as we occupy the same space together, we learn to do the one another's of Scripture toward one another, and thus create a picture of what the Lord desires here on the earth. And we don't want to get away from that. That's what we want to be. A phrase that we kind of added to that last August and September is this idea of being disciples, followers of Christ, who are all engaged in making disciples, helping others be followers of Christ. This is who we want to be. That's not real glamorous on a lot of days. But welcome to life. Welcome to church. Worshipers in community engaged in ministry. Disciples who make disciples. That's what we want to be. We want to dwell together in unity. Now, let's get at two pictures. Two pictures that this psalm offers us on kind of what that looks like. The first picture comes in verse 2. And we have this weird picture of Aaron and this oil being poured out on Aaron's head and it flowing down through his beard and then onto his robe. That sounds kind of gross, right? So what is going on in this picture? Why is David here using this picture to help us understand what it means to dwell in unity? Well, Aaron, you can go learn about Aaron in the book of Exodus. He was the brother of Moses, and it was from him that the priests descended who would minister and serve in the temple. So Aaron is this first priest, this one who is set aside, just like later generations of priests will be, to worship before the Lord in the temple and to help other people come to the Word, come to the temple and worship as well. So we have this idea of priests here. What's fascinating is to see how the idea or the word priest is used when we get to the New Testament. In the Old Testament, not everybody was priests, just some people were. But in the New Testament, what we're told is that all of those who are in Christ, all of those who have come to find forgiveness through the death of Christ, and new life through the resurrection of Christ, are set aside to function as priests, as ones who minister. A good example of this is in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. He says this, But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Everyone who has experienced the forgiveness and new life of Christ, being taken out of the darkness of sin and being brought into the light of Christ, you're now a priest. You're now a minister to others. And you have been uniquely wired and gifted to be able to minister to others in a way that no one else in this room is. And that's a beautiful thing. It's just like Grady was just talking about in communion. All of the different backgrounds we come from, all the different spaces that we walk in, the Lord has created for every single one of us opportunities to minister out of our own gifting and out of our own wiring to bless and minister to other people. And this happens in all the different spaces that we walk in. We just dedicated a lot of babies this morning. And so this process of being a minister and being a disciple who makes disciples is meant to be carried out in the context of our families, in our homes. It's meant to be carried out in the context of our vocations, whether we go to a workplace to earn a wage, or whether we're a student, or whether we educate our children at home. All of these spaces are where we're supposed to be disciples making disciples. It's also meant to be taking place in our small groups. Now, in the time we live in, about every church I'm aware of does small groups. Like, that's the thing, right? You do small groups. If you're a church, you do small groups. That used to not be the case. And then there was a little church that came along in Tuscaloosa called Grace Church, and they started doing small groups. Seriously, from our institution, way back in the late 70s, Grace Church started doing small groups. People didn't do small groups back then. Grace Church was planted with a heart for small groups, and small groups that function in a particular way. So there's small groups, and then there's small groups, right? So there's a certain approach that we use to small groups here, and it comes out of this idea of something called a cell group, like a cell in your body, right? And so we have these different small groups, and they're like different cells that make up our church body. And within each of those cells, we want that small group to be functioning like a little church. And so I started getting fascinated by this several months ago. And Tim and I started talking and wondering, are there people around who still take this approach to small groups? Because in a lot of churches, that's not their approach to small groups. They kind of do it different, and that's fine. We're not any better than they are. But there's just a certain approach that we want to have to small groups. And so we start kind of digging around. You ever read those passages in the Old Testament where they kind of go around, they start digging in the temple, and they find these scrolls, and it's like, wow, here's a scroll. We weren't doing this. Let's start doing this. And so we started doing that. Except we were looking on the internet. And so we looked on the internet, and we found this guy that we started falling in love with. And he's got all these resources on churches who function in these things called cell groups or shepherding groups. And so then we went and bought one of his books. This is it right here. This is the book that we bought. Tim and I have a phrase. I think he coined it, and we shared it with all the group leader couples and co-leader couples this past Wednesday, that leaders are readers. Is that cheesy? I don't know. When we shared it on Wednesday, everyone laughed. It's Tim's phrase, though. So we got this book. There's the title of this book. It's Making Disciples in the 21st Century Church. And the subtitle is How the Cell-Based Church Shapes Followers of Jesus. Now, I saw that title and I was like, I gotta have that book. Tim and I read it. We gave it to the elders read it. We gave it to all of our leader couples and co-leader couples, and hopefully they're going to start reading it. This is Grace Church. Like what he describes in here about how we want to be and how we want to function. I mean, this is like this. We want to go here. So like when we finally get that library reopened, we're going to have this book in the library because it gives nuts and bolts or how and why we want to do what we want to do. I'll just share one quote with you from this book, because it gives it captures it really good. Maybe. Oh, I missed a word, didn't I, Paul?
I was waiting on you, man.
I'll come back and get it. All right. Okay, a little long. Listen to this. Hey, Paul, sorry, I messed you up. Can we hold off on that one second?
No.
All right. If you want to fill in your outline, picture number 1, participation is the word, okay? Participation. In other words, to be a priest, to be a minister to others is to participate, all right? The reason you need to know that is because that's the first word of the quote, okay? All right, now, here we go. Boom, now it's all making sense, right? Okay. This is a regular thing at Grace. We always have this. Okay. All right, listen to this quote. Participation is at the core of the cell. Now, when he says cell, think shepherding group. Participation is at the core of the cell of the shepherding group. No one sits in the back seat. Chairs are not arranged in rows. As people share their stories, ask for prayer, and minister to one another, they are transformed in the process. They become the ministers, and they grow as Christ's disciples. In fact, now he gets into leaders here. So here we have a leader couple and a co-leader couple in each of our groups. The best cell leaders, in fact, leaders pay attention to this, the best cell leaders are facilitators, i.e., they're not the ones who do everything. The word facilitate means to make easy. The best facilitators make it easy for others to participate. They unwrap the gifts and the talents of those in the group. I love this quote. This is who we want to be, and this is how we want to operate. Everybody participating, everybody being a minister, everybody being a disciple who makes disciples in your own unique way. This is church. This is what we were founded on. Is people participating as ministers and realizing that God has gifted each and every single one of us equally to be able to minister. Nobody's ahead of anybody else here. My job is not important than anybody else's job. Everybody has been gifted equally to minister and to encourage and to serve one another. And man, well, I'll just hold off. The psalm tells us how beautiful this is when this happens. So we're all called to participate. Okay? Now there's a second picture. There's a second picture. In verse 3. First picture was of this oil coming down on Aaron's head, this idea of being a priest and ministering and participating. We're going to take that down now. And then the second one is this picture of dew. And it talks about dew coming down on Mount Hermon, and then dew going to other mountains in Zion. I wanted to get a map, but I couldn't find a good one. Mount Hermon is a mountain in northern Israel. The mountains of Zion, Zion's another word for Jerusalem, these are mountains in southern Israel. And so the picture given in the psalm is, there's dew that comes down on Mount Hermon, and then this dew somehow gets to other mountains in Mount Zion. Weird picture, right? Now, one of the things we do see in that picture is this idea, again, of ministering to others. So we have one mountain basically extending its dew to other mountains, right? So we kind of have that picture. But then we have this picture of dew. What is up with that? Why does David here include this idea of dew? Well, when do you see dew? You see it in the morning, right? You wake up, you see dew across the grass or on the leaves of the trees. And so there's this idea, and then the sun kind of comes up, kind of burns it off, but then you anticipate it coming again the next day, right? And so dew is new every morning, and there's this idea of anticipating it. And that's our second word here, is this idea of anticipation. Anticipation. Now there's a great verse that gives us some insight into this in Lamentations, of all things. We have that, Lamentations verse 3. Listen to this and listen to how it sounds like dew. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. Listen, they are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Do you see how do kind of sounds like this? Do is new every morning. And what the author of Lamentations here is pointing to is the faithfulness of the Lord that the Lord desires for us to experience each and every day, so that as we experience His faithfulness, it then equips us to go and extend His love and His life and His peace to others. This is normal Christianity. That as I experience the Lord for myself, and I experience how He has demonstrated His love toward me in Christ, that I'm then able to go to others and extend that love to them. But anticipation is key in that. That's your second word there. Picture number 2 is about anticipation. If the first picture is about participation, the second picture is about anticipation. In other words, when I wake up each and every day, do I wake up with the mindset that the Lord has already prepared for me opportunities to minister to other people? And when I go throughout my day, am I looking out for those? Am I anticipating them? Now, I don't know about you. My tendency is to get up and just say, all right, what do I got to get done today? What's on my to-do list for today? And it is very highly possible that I can go through a day and get every single thing done on my to-do list and have completely missed opportunities that the Lord put in my path to minister to other people. What's our mindset when we wake up? Is the mindset, hey, I just got to get through today? Now, some days, that may be as good as you can do, right? And you just, go for it, right? Just persevere and get through it and put one foot in front of the other. There are days like that. And I think more and more what the Lord wants us to cultivate is waking up and looking at our day and saying, Lord, help me open my eyes to opportunities you're placing in my path to love and minister and serve other people. I'm loving Ephesians 2. Ephesians 2 says we've been saved by grace through faith so that we might walk in the good works that the Lord has prepared beforehand for us to do. Oh, that's the whole picture. I've been saved by grace through faith so that I can now be a minister to others and walk in the good works that the Lord has laid out for me. All right, there's 2 ways I'll encourage you to do this. 2 ways. We preached sermons on each of these back in August. 2 ways that you can be a disciple who makes disciples. 2 ways you can be engaged in community, engaged in ministry. One is through proclamation. We did a whole sermon on proclamation back in August. Every single believer has been given the ministry of proclamation. Now that sounds like a big fancy word. And you may say, I don't think I've done any proclaiming lately. Let me tell you what that big fancy word is. Basically, that's a big fancy biblical word for how we use our words. If somebody followed you around for a week or a day or an hour, how would they characterize the words that you use? What kind of words do you use towards your spouse? What kind of words do you use towards your kids? What kind of words do you use on social media? What kind of words do you use about the driver next to you? Or the cashier at the store who's moving too slow? What kind of words do you use about people when they're not around? James says that our tongue has incredible power to either destroy or give life. And we can be and do a whole lot of other things as a church, but if our words are not what they're supposed to be, then we are not making disciples and we're not dwelling in unity. So let's be careful with our words. Let's make sure that we use words of life toward others. Words of goodness and gentleness and kindness and patience and encouragement toward others. I have to be very careful about this. I have a mouth that will get going before I think. Ask the staff. Ask either my in-laws or the staff. I'll tell you, right? I know I have an issue here. I have to be careful. So that's one way, proclamation. A second way, you can be engaged in being in community, engaged in ministry, or being a disciple who makes disciples is through prayer. Prayer. I was sharing with the elders last week where I feel like I'm at in my development as a pastor. And I said, guys, one of the things I feel like I'm weak in is in knowing how to best lead and serve our staff team. I just feel like I have a lot of growth to do there. And I love this. I love this. It was Keith. It was Keith. Keith said, how much do you pray for them? That's why he's an elder. How much do you pray for them? I was talking to Tim. Tim is our associate pastor. You're visiting with us. He just did, was it 16 days in the hospital? 16 days in the hospital. Was out for 3.5 weeks or so, just totally unforeseen medical stuff. I was talking to Tim about that. And he said, never before have I felt or experienced what it means to be undergirded by the prayers of the saints. That's a real deal. It's why a year and a half ago, I just said, man, I'd love for us to just start coming together and praying every August and every January as we jump back into a time of ministry and community together. Let's get together and pray that we do it well. And pray over our church. And pray for each other. Because the reality is we can have all kinds of great ideas and great horizontally focused ideas and strategies that we use. But if we're not praying, we're not tapping into the supernatural power that's meant to drive all of this. And you know what I love about this psalm is that it pictures that. In both of these pictures, you have something that starts up here and then flows down, right? The oil starts up here and it gets poured out over Aaron's beard and it flows down. You have dew that starts up here and it falls down on the mountain. And these are pictures of turn your eyes vertical and worship your way toward community. If our motivation toward loving and serving one another is simply each other, that will not last. Because somebody here is going to get on your nerves. And you're going to want to quit. And you're going to want to go home. You don't want to share the sink. And so the only way that we can accomplish supernatural biblical community is to look up. And to put our gaze on Christ. And so we pray. We have to pray. Please come this Wednesday and pray. Let's pray our way there and worship our way there. It's a beautiful thing. The psalm ends by saying that when this happens, when God's people are dwelling in unity, it uses this powerful, forceful language that there, where that's happening, the Lord commands a blessing. He commands it. Strong language. And what is the blessing? Is that in that place, when that is happening, there is life forevermore. It ends by putting our gaze toward eternity. And we, as the church, have the opportunity here and now, as we buy into being worshipers and community engaged in ministry, as we buy into being disciples who are making disciples, and as supernatural biblical community is happening among us, there is a foreshadowing of what eternity will be. That's what we'll be doing in eternity. Being worshipers in community engaged in ministry. It's not just for the here and now, it's for eternity. And we get an opportunity to demonstrate that toward one another and to the world around us as we engage in dwelling together. Please come pray on Wednesday. I want us to close our time and just spend several minutes just worshiping. We do not approach community in our own strength. It wouldn't happen. And so we look to the Lord and ask Him to be in this place, be in our midst. We always have people on the sides who are ready to pray for you if you want to be prayed for. The service is not done. Don't start packing up. We're about to worship. So So keep your mind and your heart engaged. Please. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, you have invited us into the greatest opportunity in history to participate in your plans and purposes to advance your kingdom on the earth through your church. And Lord, the way you have set up your church is in local expressions called congregations. And Lord, I thank you for the congregation at Grace Church. As Grady pointed out so well earlier, it is so clear that it is not by our own design or plan or marketing strategy that this eclectic mix of people is together. And I love it. And I thank you for each and every person here. I thank you that you have gifted each and every person here with a unique set of talents and abilities to minister and serve and to make disciples. And Lord, I ask that you would stir our hearts to participate in that, to anticipate opportunities that you bring into our paths each and every day in our homes, in the workplace, and in our small group, all the different spaces that we occupy. May we be anticipating opportunities to get in on what you're doing. Lord, we don't rely on our own strength to do this. We look to you. And so may we now worship with a fervency of heart and mind as we prepare again to move into a new season of ministry and community together. It's in the name of Christ we pray.